and welcome to the New World Review. I'm Grand Line Waifu, and I want to talk about the end of this arc because it's been a doozy and I half don't think it's over, but let's talk about that. I've certainly liked having Bisky around, and we know Hisky will return, so let's say a Pluchan farewell to our favourite creepy kid and subscribe to the idea that Hisky will one day sport the ultimate swing. Let's get into episodes 74 and 75. Oh, bummer. Gonna destroy Gon? Silly man can't destroy Gon, he's a steaming teenager. There is no one more stubborn or dangerous. While this was a great episode for the fighting, I couldn't help but think Goreno's appearance and the discussion that happened out of it was Togashi saying, look, the fighting part's over and I'm bored because I like writing fights, so here, have the money and the cards and everyone can have a car out of this and level up and be perfectly healthy because why not? You get a card and you get a card and you get a card. Cards for everyone, but especially our main characters who managed to legitimately collect all the cards we wanted them to collect. And you know what? Cards for the bad guys. Everyone gets cards because now we know everything about them. And I suppose to have gone back through all the cards and read them all and understand what they do, I'm simply not sure how this is going to play out. I feel as though they're going to be circled, but that everyone around them in true Togashi I'm bored and I want this arc done now style will get them to all help because these plebs don't know how to get out of the game despite it being hunter-grade material. And thinking about that actually, this is supposed to be a game for hunters. I sound aggressive, I know. How are so many of them basically useless? How have so many of them clearly not been hunters at all? Because they all have to be able to use Nen to complete the training, right? And yet that's not what's happened. I know this has nothing to do with the episode, but since we're getting to the end of an arc, it's close to the time where I reflect on what the hell has happened so far and why every hunter within the game is basically a weakling other than our mains. I understand that that's the point. The aim is to shine a spotlight on the ones we care about, but still, it just seems so strange that we came into a game that's supposed to be attempted by generally stronger than average people, and they've just shown themselves to be average. Not even stronger than average, just average. Some of the people Bomber was killing were just average. And speaking of stronger than average, what happened to the black guy with the giant snake creature he was snuggling up to? He just disappeared like Piggy on an airship. Togashi's really not very good at tying up loose ends, but enough of that. Why does Gon keep losing his left arm? What's the deal with that? Does he just hate it? Does his left arm Does his left arm offend him somehow? And why did Gon have to go on to kick the dude in the face? It always entertains me that his grand ideas are based on the concept of, hey, I can kick him instead of punching him, but I'm going to punch him because that's fun too. We all knew, right, that Bomber would lose, but we didn't know how. And I'll be honest, I really loved seeing how they used the rock. It's the only part of the plan that was revealed before it was being carried out, and the only proof we have, or the only proof I have, I don't know about everyone else, that Togashi did actually have a plan in place before he wrote it. And while that might seem like a strange thing for me to say, it's not actually that strange at all. I've mentioned the writing methods of pantsing and planning before, and while it can be a mess to be a pantser, someone who flies by the seat of their pants to write, it can yield really creative results. What I didn't know was how much planning went into Togashi's specific personal pants style. Losing track of Snake Guy and having Piggy turn up only to go back home are an indication to me that he's a pantser. But the fact that he had a plan and that it was actually a pretty ingenious one at that suggests to me that he plans a little more than I've given him credit for. I suppose the whole card game as quiz show mechanic also requires planning, but that's something one could easily go back in Draft 2 and decide to add in detail to the story because you need a quick out by the end. It's the sort of thing I've done before, so there's no judgment, just something I notice and am well aware of. The fight though. I know there are hero and villain speeches, and I know that they happen for a reason, but I'm surprised that Bomber didn't just continuously try to kill Gon. There was more hesitance in his combat style with Gon than I expected to see from a madman, and despite his stated desire to break Gon down, I was somewhat surprised to feel that he didn't actually want Gon dead at all. Broken spiritually maybe, but there was a grudging appreciation for Gon's abilities. The effect of this was strange to me because the outcome was that he lost some of his madness, I guess? I mean, by the end he was terrified because he'd come up against someone categorically more determined, ruthless, and risk-taking than himself, and that was great. We saw the balance shift between them so much that the Bomber art we saw at the end of last episode reversed. Gon became an evil, crazed figure in the dark by the time we got to the pitfall, while Bomber became more and more stable. What's more, while for Gon nothing changed from his perspective, we saw Bomber come to that realization almost in real time, and that fear was entirely understandable. How do you fight someone willing to sacrifice both their hands without concern? There was a moment of genuine concern from me when Gon powered up his rock ability that he was going to actually take Bomber's life. And at this point, I don't think Gon has killed anyone. Gon taking a life is being pumped up so much now that if or when, and I do suspect that it's a when he does, I suspect it's going to have to be highly, highly significant. If we look at the way Bomber exists and note that Gon is at least as ruthless as he is, the ability to kill without remorse is a final stepping stone. Or the ability to kill without expecting remorse from others, or the ability to kill without, feeling the remorse at changing the way others view you. That is all Gon's final stepping stone. In fact, we come back to the idea of morality with Goreno and Killua discussing it. Killua knows what he's done. He's very conscious of the fact that despite growing up in an assassin household and being taught the family business, he's not a good person, or at least he's not able to call himself a good person because of the things he's done. He doesn't see himself as an innocent. At present, Gon is an innocent despite the way he thinks, and we have Bisky and Killua trying to keep him that way. The fact that Killua is the one trying to preserve Gon's morality is somewhat heartbreaking because I see Killua as highly morally insightful in a way that Gon could never be, because his focus isn't on morality but on fulfilling the tasks set by his trainers and dad. It would have been a very different situation if Gon had been raised by the Zoldyck family. Bomber wouldn't be alive now. Us, indeed. Let's move on and discuss episode 75. Episode 75 and the other players are, as I suspected, here to help Gon win the pub quiz at the end of the game. What would have happened if he hadn't been able to get that last card? Well, it looks like all the attention Gon was paying to the game as it happened, all those moments Killua mocked him for taking the game seriously paid off, and good for him. Goal-focused Gon, that's what we'll call him. I'm really glad we didn't have to go through all the questions, which was a genuine concern for me. With Togashi's past intense desire for us to learn what he's learned, I was worried. Instead, we return to Snake Guy, who, it turns out, is going to help Crollo. Look, I said Togashi was bad at hooking characters back in less than 5 minutes ago. I'll give him this. The character is important, and I really should have known that he is capable of forestalling and getting rid of Nen abilities with the right weird creature buddy. Having caught the Bomber, I go back on what I said last episode. When I say last episode, I mean the last episode of Hunter x Hunter, not the... 5 minutes ago I said a thing and I take it back, okay? Look. It doesn't happen often, but I'll take it back. Having caught the Bomber, I'm excited to see where we go from here with him, but that's for an arc in the future. For now, we get to see if Gon actually found his dad. Let's talk about that later. Instead, as we wind down the arc, Bisky's happy with the kids despite saying in the beginning that she was going to mess with them. I really don't understand some of these initial impressions of characters when I think about it. Bisky clearly likes them and was never actually awful, but creepy kids sitting on a balcony will always creep me out. There have only been a couple of characters where this has happened, but while the subverting of expectations is great and enjoyable, it seems odd to me to subvert them by making them entirely false. I'm not actually sure how I'm supposed to reconcile the Bisky who appeared in the first episodes of this arc with the one who exists now. The one now is much more three-dimensional, but she's also only similar to the original one in form. And, I mean, for Bisky, even the form is a little questionable, depending on who's around. We leave Bisky, a character who is alive for once, alone for now to enjoy her Blue-chan and what I think is information she's not sharing, despite not knowing what all the plans were to do with his dad. Speaking of Jing, we learned a lot about him this episode, including that he's cruel enough to just change someone else's name to fit with his own interests, but also that he was sentimental enough to possibly bring his son to the game he created. It's a sappiness adorable enough for Killua to give heart eyes to, and we saw a lot of Killwa's bashfulness and heart eyes today. The primary one that got me was his love for Gon shining through as Gon walked away hoping to meet his father, but instead meeting some more of the designers of Greed Island. And here I would like to discuss my theory that Togashi is Dwoon. That's it. That's my entire theory. Togashi is Dwoon, and the reactions Gon has to Dwoon and his environment are the same reactions Togashi would expect Gon to have to his maker. Yeah, I like that, and I'm sticking with it. The fact that Jing decided that Greed Island would be spelt out using the names of the 10 people involved in creating it means a few things. First things first, Greed Island has 11 letters in it, so either Jing double insulted Dwoon. Greed Island has 11 letters in it, so either Jing double insulted Dwoon or it doesn't make sense. Then we've got the fact that actually we haven't met any anyone with a name starting with N, which means that the Neeg that the boys followed could well be that person and not Jing. I also wonder whether they have actually left the game at all, because Gon was told there was an extra message that would be given to him once he'd chosen and taken his cards. There's a great deal of strangeness that happens when you alter reality by saying someone can take magical mechanics from a game to the real world. We have to question reality when magic is involved, and we're supposedly in the real world now. And there are other animes entirely based on that concept, and ReZero springs to mind on that, but it's such a strange thing to me. The idea that you can take something that is a mechanic in a game that was developed and put it in the real world doesn't sit well with me. Returning to the spelling of Greed Island, though, they haven't met everyone. They've met the greed aspect, as far as we can tell, but the island? There's almost half the team missing. I'm very confused with that, but I imagine we're going to meet them in this upcoming arc. And I have to say, I'm very excited to be getting into a new arc, to be back on the main storyline of questing to find and be worthy of one's father, which is really the storyline of the arc that we just finished, but like less game. Will we immediately be sidetracked by Crollo being uncursed and the Phantom Troop turning up? I have no idea. What exactly will happen to Bomber and the other two? No one knows. They'll probably go on bombing or join the Phantom Troop, which would serve them well, I'm sure. Gon and Killua are leaving a trail of people who only half-heartedly want to kill them in their wake. It could turn into a huge issue if they full-heartedly decide that they all want them dead. Another thing I noticed in the art was that compared to when we started and compared to even the beginning of this arc, Gon's face has lengthened and gained slightly harder edges. Now this could just be the change of scene, but it seems as though Gon is aging up. He's maturing and it's being reflected in his art style here and there, whether by design or by accident. Interestingly, Killua's art's not doing that at all. He still seems very young and soft and doe-eyed. The softer, more thoughtful energy is wonderful. But okay, right now I want to see who it is that's fishing, so that's it from me. If you enjoyed this discussion of the end of an arc, hit that like, subscribe, and whatever else might be there button. Come hang out on the Discord and click here, or here for more, and I'll see you next time.